The Fairmont Firebirds, the Alter Knights. Week 1 of the high school football season is here, and we have all the action for you on 1410 ESPN Radio and 101.5 Hank FM. The Battle of Kettering, this Thursday night, with coverage starting at 6. The Fairmont Firebirds, the Alter Knights. Week 1 of the high school football season is here, and we have all the action for you on 1410 ESPN Radio and 101.5 Hank FM. The Battle of Kettering, this Thursday night, with coverage starting at 6:30.
To be fair, of all the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, Joe Burrow is the least accomplished.
Getting better.
1,000,000%. I 1,000,000% believe that the Dayton Flyers are afraid of the Wright State Raiders. That's why they come up with every excuse in the book not to play them.
There it is. The hottest take of them all. It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, live on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, look, will the Cincinnati Bengals just hurry up and trade Trey Hendrickson already? Can they just pull the trigger? Can they just? I'm so tired of. I feel like for years and many years, I look. It's been T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson. That's all we've seemed to be talking about when it comes to this Bengals team for years now. And I'm over it. I want something new. I'm tired of talking about slow starts in September. I'm tired of talking about, I was tired of talking about the T. Higgins, when, will the Bengals extend him? Will they keep him? Will they trade him? Blah, blah, blah. And this Trey Hendrickson thing has finally reached that. It's like the Cincinnati Bengals do not know how to exist unless there's some kind of long-term, over-exhausted talking point that sticks with them year in and year out. And Trey Hendrickson is the newest one to the party. Trey Hendrickson is the one that is now just dominating all of the talking points and all of the headlines when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals team. So we sit here right now, and I just want to know, when are the Cincinnati Bengals going to officially pull the trigger on this move? I found it was interesting that today it was reported that the Las Vegas Raiders they're considered to be the front runners to land the Bengals superstar pass rusher in Trey Hendrickson. Led the league in sacks last year, of course, but according to, again, a reporter named Hondo Carpenter, he covers the Las Vegas Raiders for Sports Illustrated. He reported earlier today that he is hearing that the Raiders are the front runners to land Trey Hendrickson. This is the quote from the report, that in a conversation with the NFL executive on Tuesday, I being, of course, Hondo Carpenter, was informed, I have no doubt that the Raiders are the front runners. Tom Brady and Mark Davis want to win now. And John Spytek, again, has no fear when it comes to making bold moves. Hendrickson, that move is the mentality of Pete Carroll. He is not afraid of anything that could improve the team. Again, Trey Hendrickson, if you're just joining us and jumping in, right now as we currently sit here, they're the favorites. Okay, they are the favorites to potentially land Trey Hendrickson. Now, whether you believe that or not, that's up for debate. We can get into, the Patriots could potentially be in on Trey Hendrickson, that they could be the team that ultimately lands him. I still firmly believe that the team that could give the Bengals the best return, and I don't know if they would want to trade within the division or not. They probably would not prefer to trade within the division. But I guarantee you there's only one team that could truly give the Bengals exactly what they want, and I think that team exists in their division. And not only could they give them what they want, they are built. They have the capability to give them what they want, and that's the Cleveland Browns. From reports earlier in the week, it sounds like what the asking price is for Trey Hendrickson is a first-round pick and a young defensive player. Does not have to be a pass rusher per se, but the Cleveland Browns have 2 first-round picks next year, and they have young defensive talent, whether it could potentially be Newsome, whether it could be, Mason Graham, who they just selected in the first round, and they also have 2 first-round picks. Not that you're sending both of them there. I just mean they could move on from one of those first-round picks, get the NFL sack leader, pair him with Myles Garrett, wreak havoc on the likes of Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow and Aaron Rodgers for at least 6 games this year. And I think that's well worth the use of that first-round pick, especially if you get Trey Hendrickson and Myles The paired up together. The Bengals could brag all they want and talk about how we have this great tandem in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins for the next 3 years, well, the Browns would be set up pretty nicely having Trey Hendrickson and Myles Garrett tied together for the next 3 years. I just see that unlikely because they're within the division, but it's one of those things where the Bengals, if they weren't too proud, this is the move that they should make. They should be on the phone with the Cleveland Browns trying to get that first. I don't think that the Bengals get a first. I don't think that they're going to get a first-round pick. And you could say, well, Cleveland would be dumb to give up a first-round pick to get him. If the Browns didn't have any pass rushers and you gave up a first-rounder to get him and only him, I would find that silly. But because you have pass rushers, that's what makes the need for Hendrickson even more important. You could say that he's more important to the Bengals than the Browns. I disagree. I think that he elevates the Cleveland Browns significantly. He doesn't elevate the Bengals. They've missed the playoffs 2 years in a row with him. They've had one of the worst defenses in the NFL back-to-back years with him. He instantly elevates the Cleveland Browns. If he returns to Cincinnati and he ends his holdout, I don't think nobody fears the Bengals defense even with him, because that's how little is around him. That's how little was around him last year. Cleveland needs to be the team. Cleveland is the team that can give the Bengals exactly what they want and would get an instant lift and boost defensively. The Raiders, they don't have a first-round pick that I think that they're willing to part ways with, which is why I don't think that the Bengals are going to get that first-round pick out unless they would, get that deal done with Cleveland. But I will say, if the Raiders, who I think are a very underrated team, I've been arguing with Kev and everybody else about the Raiders for a while. Everyone wants to bury them in that division over the AFC West. But when you look at the weapons that they have, and Ashton Jeanty's looked phenomenal so far, by the way, that was their first round pick. But they have a solid offensive line. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL. And if you had Trey Hendrickson with Max Crosby, I mean, that's how you attack Justin Herbert 2 times a year. That's how you attack Patrick Mahomes 2 times a year. Like, Bo Nix isn't one of those quarterbacks that sparks fear down the spines of anybody, but at the same time, solid rookie quarterback last year under a very good head coach in Sean Payton. How you disrupt that offense, Max Crosby, and of course, having Trey Hendrickson. I think that's one way that the Raiders can go about doing that. But as we sit here right now, I love the, Trey Hendrickson, the fact that reports are coming out that the Raiders are the front runners to get him. It has nothing to do with Cleveland at this point, but it sounds like if they're the front runners to get him, that means intense conversations have happened. Are the Bengals truly going to pull the trigger on this move? Are the Bengals actually going to trade away Trey Hendrickson? Because, it's just one of those things where I don't know if Trey Hendrickson has the leverage that he thinks he does. I mean, he's under contract for 1 year. Now, it's one of those things where, the Bengals could sit here and say, man, do we really, we could trade him. He doesn't want to play. He's constantly a pain in our ass because, hey, we've been bad with him. And he constantly is trying to get out of here, although he's arguing that he wants to stay here. He just wants guaranteed money. They're not going to budge. It would be kind of silly of them not to try to capitalize on his value if they could get a younger defensive player that they're willing to invest into because the age range is right. But at the same time, do you try to prove a point if you're Mike Brown? Do you try to prove a point that you're not going to be bullied? You were just bullied by Jamar Chase. They weren't afraid to pay Jamar Chase money, but they were bullied by Jamar Chase, who basically said, if you don't sign T. Higgins, I'm not signing my extension. Now, they could have called his bluff, but they ultimately and reluctantly signed T. Higgins. And for anyone out there that thinks the plan was always to sign T, do you guys really feel like it was trending in that direction? Joe Burrow knew it wasn't trending in that direction. That's why he went to the media. T. Higgins, when there was a couple times where he caught up with local media during the Super Bowl week, basically, I mean, all indications were pointing towards him not returning to Cincinnati next year. And then the reports come out that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, who share an agent, basically said, you get both or you get none. So the Bengals have been bullied a lot. And they don't mind being bullied by Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's the quarterback. That's what you do what your quarterback says. Even if it's not always the right decision, you do what he says. They were willing to be beat up a little bit by Jamar Chase, but they got beat up by Jamar Chase because they were forced to take on T. Higgins. And I don't think that they really wanted to. And I think that this is just to go from the Joe Burrow negotiation to the Jamar Chase / T. Higgins negotiation to now this. I think that the Bengals front office is tired of being bullied and pushed around. At some point, the Cincinnati Bengals front office is basically saying, hey, I want to do it my way now. We've given, not an inch. We've given, we gave you a couple inches. You took a couple miles. We're not doing that anymore. And it's like, at some point, do you want to be known as the team that just dishes out money left and right, which sounds like a good thing. But when Cleveland does it, they're a poorly run franchise when Cleveland opens up the wallet to spend endless amounts of money to get whatever talent that they want. They're a bad franchise for that. The Bengals are the extreme to the other end where they just won't bend over backwards for their players. Oh, what do you mean? They paid Jamar Chase. Yeah, but they still found a way to mess that up. They made that difficult. They could have done if they always knew they were going to pay Jamar Chase, why not just pay him last year and get it over with? Instead, they drew it out a year and ended up spending $15 million a year more than what they should have. But Trey Hendrickson, the Raiders are the front runners to land Trey Hendrickson, man. And you guys could sit there and say, well, you know what? You could sit there and say, well, the Bengals, they don't really want to trade within the division, but you're still trading within the conference if you send them to the Raiders. You're still trading within you're not trading within the division, but you're trading within the conference. And as far as the Bengals are concerned, I mean, you don't have the Raiders on the schedule this season, but I mean, can you imagine if the Bengals win the division somehow, some way, or they make the playoffs and they run into the Raiders and they have to run into that guy, to Trey Hendrickson and Max Crosby? You don't want to beef up another potential team in the AFC. And there seems to be no NFC teams that are lining up to take a part in this deal as well. The Bengals have to decide. Do you want to be stubborn? Do you want to be, do you want to play hardball with, Trey Hendrickson and say, we're not trading you and we're not paying you, and just put all the pressure on him to step foot out on that field? Or are you going to bite the bullet and just say, man, we're going to send him to Cleveland because we really want that first round pick. We really want that first round pick. Paul Blanton, what up, Paul? It's been a while. Paul Brown would never have been bullied by his players. Paul, do you think that the Brown family has been bullied in recent negotiations? Do you think he's being bullied now by Trey Hendrickson? Maybe bullying is not the term I should use, but they're being pushed around, I guess. I guess it's bullying. I don't know. But it does seem like they have, they paid T. Higgins, they paid Trey Hendrickson, or they paid T and Jamar, and Joe Burrow's been paid. And it's like they're not getting credit for it because it's almost like they were reluctant to do it. They were dragging their feet to get these deals done, and it just doesn't make any sense. You should be excited to get Jamar Chase to a long-term deal. You should be excited about T. Higgins, and you should be excited about having the NFL sack leader, and they just don't seem excited by it. And it seems like they got pushed around by Jamar and T, and they're not about to be pushed around by Trey Hendrickson. I don't know. Paul, you're a big Bengals fan. I'm just curious. Do you think that they get a deal done with Trey? Is this just a tactic? Or do you think that they should trade him? I'm just kind of curious your thoughts. Leave it in the chat. The Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. We'll step away for a few moments. We will jump into the Cincinnati Reds coming up around the corner. The Bengals open up the season here in a few weeks against the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are one of the teams that were pursuing Trey Hendrickson earlier this week, but it looks like the Raiders, according to reports, are the front runners as far as that goes. We'll be right back. The Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers.
To the Justin Kinner Show, right here on ESPN Dayton, 1410 Wing AM.
All right, and we are back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. All right, so reports came out earlier today that it appears that the Las Vegas Raiders are the frontrunners to land Bengals pass rusher Trey Hendrickson if indeed a trade goes down. Now, the reason I really never felt extremely confident that a trade was ever going to actually fully develop, but the reporting is different. Like all the reporting before is that that the Bengals are fielding offers or that they're open to trading them, and you hear that a lot in some of these situations. Like the Browns, they were fielding trade offers for Myles Garrett, but there was never a situation where reports were breaking that this team is the front runner to land them. For those reports to break, that means deep conversations, extensive conversations had to have been held, and that was never the case. This is the first time where I've seen, and earlier in the week, it was reported that teams like the Panthers, which makes sense, the quarterback on a rookie deal, they have a lot of money to spend. It made sense that they were interested in Trey Hendrickson. The Colts, it makes sense that they're interested in Trey Hendrickson because obviously with the Lou Anarumo tie right there, and because you should, I think more teams should be interested in this than some of the ones that are mentioned. The Cleveland Browns, that were the most interesting one. Imagine pairing Trey Hendrickson, NFL sack leader, with the Myles Garrett. I mean, that would just be a phenomenal pairing right there for Cleveland. They just have so many other deficiencies that would you get the true value of that, as far as that goes. The Las Vegas Raiders creeping into this, saying that they're the front runners to land Trey Hendrickson because of the aggressiveness of Davis and Tom Brady and just the general manager and having Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll is the NFL's version to me. Like the Raiders, if I had to compare like the Cincinnati Reds to an NFL team, it would be the Raiders, right? Like, it's a team that is always struggling, and they go out and they hire an aged head coach, an aged manager, Terry Francona, and it's like you expect them to make aggressive moves to take advantage of a short window of time. And I feel like that's the Raiders right now. And you just made, Max Crosby a $35 million contract last year, or the last year. Damn, I guess this year, this offseason. And that's really what led to the spiraling of some of these contracts for the pass rushing market, which really screwed the Bengals. We thought, man, the Bengals 30 to 35 mil a year for Trey Hendrickson. And now, it's at that 40 range, that we've seen. So Max Crosby paired with Trey Hendrickson would be huge for a Pete Carroll defense. And Pete Carroll has taken teams to multiple Super Bowls. He's won a Super Bowl because of having, overly talented defense. So it makes sense why they would be the front runners to land him. But if they're the front runners to land him, that means like details have been discussed and that trade options have been discussed. And it sounds like it's a lot closer. I don't know if a deal will get done or not. Now, Brian on Facebook, and again, we're live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. Excuse me. Man, that always happens. My apologies. We're live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page, as well as ESPN Dayton's Facebook page and YouTube channel. Brian says, stop. They're not trading him. They're going to call his bluff. At this age, he's not worth 3 years of guaranteed money. 2 years, maybe. 2 years, maybe. I get that, but why are so many teams, and this goes back to my debate from the beginning of the offseason, if you are debating whether, why are teams, why is Myles Garrett getting so much guaranteed money deep into his contract? Like, they're not worried about him playing into his 30s. Why are the Steelers not worried about TJ Watt well into his 30s? Max Crosby, who will be in his 30s by the time this deal ends, and he'll be getting guaranteed money into his 30s. Like a lot of these pass rushers, Nick Bosa, some of these guys, they're in their upper 20s, about to step into the 30s. I mean, we're talking about a guy right now in Trey Hendrickson, the NFL sack leader, who's only 30. Why is it that the Bengals are the only team that is skeptical of a pass rusher guaranteed money into his 30s? Like, at some point, it has to be a little criticism towards the Bengals front office for being a little too stubborn in this situation. Because Brian, I'm with you. You are conditioned as a Bengal, and this isn't a shot. Like, you're conditioned to think this way because of how the Bengals operate. And that's the problem here, because I was doing that too. Well, the Bengals are right to not want to give him money into the 30s, but then when you start looking around the league and how much money is being dispersed amongst pass rushers who will be into their 30s by the time that guaranteed money kicks in, the Bengals are the only one that are stubbornly living on that island. They're dying on that hill. And I just think it's kind of strange to me because you could get off these deals, even if it's fully guaranteed money in those back ends. If you signed him to a 3 or 4 year extension, included those guarantees in the back end, you could still trade him. You could even look to trade him after this upcoming season. You could trade him in 2 years if you wanted. You would get off of some of that. It's not as if you would eat the whole contract. That's why I mean, even in baseball, I'm fine on teams giving big contracts because the likelihood of you eating that entire contract is slim. There's a good chance you're going to move on from that guy by the end of that contract unless they have a no trade clause in there. And I just don't look at Trey Hendrickson as that type of guy. But Nathan Simpson, we're live on YouTube. Nathan Simpson on YouTube says Bengals ownership is notoriously cheap. It has nothing to do with the GM. They're puppets to the ownership. Well, I get that. I mean, that I wouldn't 100% agree with. But when I put the front office into a big bubble as a whole. So whether it's Duke Tobin, whether it's Katie Blackburn, whether it's the Brown family, it doesn't matter. To me, the front office is the front office. Like at some point, all of this is getting held up. So the front office just looks silly. As far as that goes. Ron Howard says, all the teams that are interested are all non-contenders. Guys, I think the Raiders are more of a contender than you think. When you really break down the Raiders, I think because they play in that division, they don't have the sexiest quarterback, but I really like their quarterback. I like Geno Smith. And, as far as having Raheem Mostert and Ashton Jeanty to start this, that's a hell of a running duo right there. They have a very good offensive line. All right. The only thing I don't like about them, I don't think they have the sexiest wide receiver unit. All right. But Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, obviously Dante Thornton Jr., but Brock Bowers is a top 3 tight end in football and was that even after 1 year. I mean, the kid was unbelievable last year, but it's the defense. All of their talent really lives on the defensive side of the ball. And if you add Trey Hendrickson into the mix, I think it makes them a playoff contender. I don't know if I'd say Super Bowl contender. I'd put them in. Nathan Simpson says Raiders are an 8-9 team at best. Nathan, if they get Trey Hendrickson, do you still believe that? I really like Geno, and I really like Ashton Jeanty, and I like Raheem Mostert too. I think that those two together are a hell of a combo. I think the Raiders need to go get a number 1 wide receiver, but the Chiefs haven't had a number 1 wide receiver for a while because of how good of a tight end they have. And I think that the Raiders are on the cusp of having something special like that as well. Brian on Facebook says that's why the Bengals don't get stuck with dead money and why they're not in salary cap hell. But Brian, are you defending them in that? Because you don't hang banners for not being in salary cap hell. The Eagles are going to be in salary cap hell, and they're going to have Super Bowls to show for it. Cleveland, and I'm not defending Cleveland here, but I will say I don't mind Cleveland being aggressive with money, even if they become in salary cap hell, because I at least feel like they're trying. I don't feel like your team's trying. And I don't know how you could say that you feel that either. Do you think that they're trying? Oh, but they signed Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Yeah, and they threw public temper tantrums about it. They didn't want to. They created their own chaos because if they wanted to pay him, they could have just done it. And instead, they ended up paying way more than they needed to. Brian, I get why they're doing it. It doesn't make, that may be their justification. I just don't think it's right. I don't think it's right what they're doing. Shaw, what up, Shaw? He says all the others are not 30. Trey is already 30 now. The other defensive ends will be turning 30 in the contract. But it doesn't matter. So you mean the difference between Trey Hendrickson or Max Crosby getting guaranteed money at 31 and Trey Hendrickson getting money at 32 is that big of a difference? The Bengals don't want to give him guaranteed money at 32, so 32 is the cutoff. I know what you're saying, but again, Myles Garrett is 30. Max Crosby's 27, but he is going to be 31 by the time his contract's done, and he's going to be getting guaranteed money at 31 years old. And the Bengals are terrified to give guaranteed money to Trey Hendrickson at 32. Like, you can have a certain belief in your philosophy of how you do these contracts. I just think it's silly. You have to be a little flexible. You have to take chances. What chances have the Bengals taken? I don't think they've been aggressive at all. They haven't taken any chances whatsoever. The most aggressive teams have been rewarded for it. Even if a Super Bowl doesn't come, like the 49ers have been super aggressive in recent years. They've been rewarded for it. They've been to multiple Super Bowls. Obviously, they haven't come away with one, but do 49ers fans feel like their team has ever not tried? They won't say that. Now, the Eagles have the Super Bowls to show for it, but they've been super aggressive. Cleveland, I'm telling you, Cincinnati's in a better spot because you have Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow and T. Higgins, and you have those cats. And even when you're bad, like the Bengals are, your team's bad right now. You just don't feel like they're bad because that's how good Joe Burrow is. Okay, so I completely get that. You're in a better spot. But I still feel like Cleveland, I always appreciate the fact that they are willing to throw money out there. They're willing to try and get, like, if Cleveland ever lands their Joe Burrow, the NFL's in trouble at that point because they will not hesitate to give their quarterback everything. They thought they had their quarterback in Baker Mayfield at the time, and they gave up, they made a big trade to go get Odell Beckham Jr., right? Like they put a ton of money into their tight end room. They spent a ton of money on their offensive line. They went ham on defense, right? Like they did everything they could to give Baker Mayfield everything that he needed. It didn't work. But you can't say Cleveland didn't try. You can't say they didn't try to give Baker everything he needed to be successful, right? You look at Deshaun Watson. Yes, it blew up in their face. Not defending that. But I am going to defend the intent of, at the time, they were willing to risk a lot of drama and everything to go get a quarterback in his 20s that was a top 5 quarterback 2 years without playing before that. If Deshaun Watson is the top 5 quarterback he was before, nobody is saying that Cleveland made a mistake. It's only a mistake because somehow, some way, out of nowhere, a top 5 quarterback in his prime in his 20s just forgot how to play football out of nowhere. It doesn't make sense. But it's true. Deshaun Watson doesn't even look a fraction of what he was at Houston. Makes 0 sense, by the way. But Cleveland thought they had a top 5 quarterback in Deshaun Watson, and they spent like it. They spent every dollar they had and then some to put the. I appreciate that Cleveland does everything they can to give their team a chance to win. Cincinnati doesn't. I'm not hating. Not hating. David Shaw, Garrett is 29. He'll be 30 in December. Okay, you win. You win, Shaw. You win. They gave him an extension at 29 years old in a year that he turns 30. Who cares? Who cares? They signed him before he turns 30. Months before. You were talking a few months before, Shaw, and you're going to sit there and act like you really won this argument. Man, 2 days in a row, you're getting the blood boiling. My goodness. Doesn't matter. They signed him before he's 30. 29 years old, months before he turned 30. That's the hill you're dying on. That's the hill you're dying on. What are we doing here? But the Browns make dumb decisions. Cough, Watson, cough. Yes, I can't argue with you on that. I get it. But the intent to get Watson wasn't dumb. It's just dumb because he ended up being a bad quarterback. Brian, if he was the quarterback that he was in Houston, would that decision be dumb? Because that's the move. They made a move to go get the quarterback that they thought would be in Houston. And by the way, tons of NFL teams were lining up to do the same. Tons. Atlanta was, even the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Panthers. I mean, there was a long list of teams who were lining up to get Deshaun Watson. It's not as if Cleveland was the only team. You could say, well, Cleveland's the only team that was willing to give him guaranteed money because they can. Cincinnati doesn't do the guaranteed thing because they don't have the money to give out all these fully guaranteed contracts. I get what you're saying, Brian. I'm not saying you're wrong because Cleveland hasn't given me enough ammo to truly defend them. I get it. But at the same time, this game, you win and die by your quarterback. They made you could say they were desperate. Okay. Every team should be desperate to get a quarterback. Don't get me wrong. That's the only way to win. So is what it is. All right. Justin Kinnan with you here. Dayton's ESPN Radio 937-518-1410. The number to call and jump in on the conversation. Bottom line, do the Bengals need to get their head out of their behinds and stop with this nonsense of not wanting to give Trey Hendrickson guaranteed money into his 30s? Myles Garrett, 29. It's 2020. He's 30 years old in 2025, and that's the year that they gave him his extension. Who cares? If this guy can help you win now, you do it now. You do it now. Do it now, as far as I'm concerned. Should the Bengals ease up their stance on this? 937-518-1410. We'll be right back.
Fairmont Firebirds, the Alter Knights. Week 1 of the high school football season is here, and we have all the action for you on 1410 ESPN Radio and 101.5 Hank FM. The Battle of Kettering, this Thursday night, with coverage starting at 6:30.
All right, and we are back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. The Dayton Weight Loss Secret Program has successfully helped thousands of people lose 20 to 30 pounds in a month or two. Schedule your free consultation in person or virtually by calling 937-999-1480 or online at DaytonWeightLossSecret.com. Again, the Dayton Weight Loss Secret Program successfully has helped thousands of people lose 20 to 30 pounds in a month or two. I'm one of those thousands, by the way. I started the Dayton Weight Loss Secret Program back on July 1st at 210. Just weighed in at 185 earlier in the week, or late last week, if you will. So again, to already be down 25 pounds a month and some change into this, it's definitely been beyond fun to just watch how quickly the results of this have really started. And I'm going to continue going. 185 was the goal weight. They ask you your goal weight at the beginning, and they, and I hit that a month and a half quick. I thought it was going to be months, and I got it in a month and a half. So I'm going to continue this. I'm going to keep it going. I want to try to get, as close to 170, 165 in that range. I'm going to keep riding it. So again, I've been very satisfied with the results. No injections, no, you're not starving yourself by any means. All right. No endless workouts, no prepackaged meals that always look better on the box. And when you take them out, warm them up, none of that. Okay. Call for your free consultation today, 937-999-1480, or you could, of course, check them out and schedule your free consultation online at DaytonWeightLossSecret.com. And if you bring a friend or a spouse and you both enroll, all right, in a weight loss program, you're both going to get 15% off the program. That's a deal that's going on for the month of August only. So take advantage of that, DaytonWeightLossSecret.com. Go check it out. All right. Cincinnati Bengals have a philosophy. They do not want to spend they don't want to give guaranteed money to Trey Hendrickson or really any player in, deep into their 30s. And when I think deep into I'm 35. To me, I feel like I'm deep into my 30s. I don't feel like a guy that's 30, 31 years old, that if you give him a 3-year contract at 34 is going to be deep into his 30s. I can understand if Trey Hendrickson was 33 years old, 34 years old, asking for a 3 or 4 year, contract with a lot of guarantees in it. He's in his early 30s. What are we doing here? Some of the best. I mean, you look at TJ Watt, you look at Myles Garrett, 29, sorry, Shaw, 29, 30 years old, whatever. Like, if you want to win, you got to be aggressive and take chances. So that's the thing for the Bengals. So they're only willing to pay players in their 20s. They're not willing to do anything with, if you're in your 30s, you could forget guaranteed money. They have to stop with this beyond ridiculous approach to how they are structuring these deals. Like it's not that they don't want Trey Hendrickson. They just don't want to give him guarantees because of his age at this point, and he's not geriatric. He's not old. It doesn't make any sense. Ron Howard says Lamar Jackson left practice today with the wrist injury. Yeah, and a little banged up. It was just precautionary. Lamar Jackson's fine by any means. Busy day for the Bengals as far as news is concerned. By the way, the phone lines are lit up. We're going to get your calls in just a second. A couple more Bengals headlines and updates for you. Andre Yoshivas was added to the list of players not practicing today, by the way. He did not practice. Kelsey Conway and other Bengals media highlighted that. So that's interesting. No Yoshi out on the field for practice today. Jalen Rivers is in at right guard with the Bengals starters today. Rivers, keep in mind, is the next man up with Lucas Patrick and Cody Ford both dealing with injuries as far as that goes. And then one of the bigger updates today for the Bengals, Bengals guard Cordell Volson is expected to miss the season as he will undergo shoulder surgery. And this is a report I have pulled up from Kelsey Conway. Volson started 48 games for the Bengals. Again, a significant loss for Cincinnati. Again, he's not a starter anymore, but he did have a ton of experience within that system. So just a familiar name up front that the Bengals are going to be without for the season. Other Bengals headlines. The Bengals played a lot of starters in preseason games 1 and 2. They will be going up against their former defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo's Indianapolis Colts, by the way, coming up this weekend. Zach Taylor did say that the starters will not play against the Colts on Saturday. Zach Taylor was getting a lot of criticism this week for how long and how deep into the game this past weekend that Joe Burrow played. Especially with backup offensive linemen in there, didn't have his top pass catchers out there. He got hit a lot. He only got sacked once, but he got hit a lot. They're not taking any chances. No starters in this game against the Colts coming up this weekend. So there you go. All right, I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show. To the phones we go. Do the Cincinnati Bengals, does the front office need to ease up a little bit on their philosophy with guaranteed money to players deep into the 30s? I mean, that's what's getting in the way. It's not that they do, that's what's getting in the way between them and this Trey Hendrickson deal. The Raiders are considered the front runners to land Trey Hendrickson. Will they actually pull that off? Let's go to the phones. Ben and Dayton, kick us off. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, man. What you got?
Good. Congrats on the weight loss, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Working on that myself. So that's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
So this whole thing is, I think it's really interesting. One, do I wish they bring Trey back for sure? Do I think it's going to happen? Somehow I think it's going to happen somehow, some way. And he still has one more year. Now I know he won't get it. But I have a feeling they're going to end up pulling this off at the last minute kind of thing. But my whole thing is, how do we not know that this might be like a Shamar thing, where it's more of a Trey issue a little bit more than the Bengals? I mean, it is the Bengals somewhat. But, like at the end of Shamar, all of a sudden it was like all of a sudden they signed him and everything was kumbaya and in a matter of minutes. And we come to find out that he was just waiting for one little thing to change, where we thought it was this big thing that he wanted to change. It was just a small thing. How do we not know that this is the same thing with Trey? That's what I'm just curious about. I don't really care about his age. I think he could go for a lot longer and play. It would be great to see him play. And for me, as a Bengals fan, if they're going to let him go, I don't want just picks. You're going to have to get somebody. And I'm, if you're going to go and get rid of him, well, you better get like a Max Crosby or somebody back. I don't want just picks, because that's not going to do any good for this season. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, and by the way, I get what you're saying about the Shamar Stewart deal, where it was just something small, but at the same time, the news on Shamar Stewart kind of went dormant a little bit. It was just like we had accepted that there was just drama and there was really no new update. There was no new update on this Trey Hendrickson thing either, but I think that the reason I think it might be a little bit more serious than the Shamar Stewart thing, the fact that the Bengals are aggressively taking calls and interacting with calls, and there's enough getting out there that it's either a work and they're using it towards negotiation, just trying to get a little leverage. I just think that there's so much out there. The fact that so many teams have been in touch with them and have discussed things, the fact that so many media members know exactly what the Bengals are asking for in this, it just says to me that there are conversations being had, which means they're taking time for these conversations because they feel like this might be something that they have to do. I don't know. So, if this is being drawn out, you think this is more of a Trey Hendrickson thing that's drawing this out, not so much the Bengals?
A little bit of Trey, but I also think, well, it might be a Bengals thing saying, all right, buddy, look out there, see what you want, see what you think you're going to get, and we're just going to throw out there that we're looking at teams, and at the end of it all, Trey's going to say, okay, I don't think I'm going to get really as much as I think I'm going to get out there, and so I'm just going to have to let it go for now and hope that in the back end I can pick up something else.
Yeah, I mean, it's why if the Raiders do land Trey Hendrickson, I mean, to put him on the defense with Crosby, that's insane. If the Browns land them with Myles Garrett, that's sick.
I don't want to watch. I don't want to watch week one if that happens. You talk about a revenge tour. Woo.
I mean, twice a year. I mean, that'd be twice a year moving forward. Yeah. So do you think a deal gets at the end of the day, though, the deal gets done? Is Trey Hendrickson a Bengal in week one?
I say by this sometime either Friday to Monday week, probably the end of the week dump, as they say, something like that. I think that's when it's going to happen. I don't know. I have a feeling. Not that that's really the best way to go at it, but that's what I think. And I could be wrong, but
I don't think anyone knows. Jay Morrison, he covers the Bengals. He was on last week, and he said he circled Labor Day. He kind of feels like it's going to be a Labor Day, breaking news type of thing that a deal is done around that time. So we'll see what ends up happening.
I don't know. It's crazy. I hate that they do this every year, but
yeah, no kidding. But hey, Ben,
well, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you calling. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
937-518-1410. Dick. No, not Shaw, not you. I'm talking to Dick from Dayton. Dick, how are you, buddy?
Hey, what's up, Justin? Hey, the Browns looked pretty good Saturday, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I want to see Shador. I just want to see Shador.
Yeah.
I wish Shador was out there. But Dylan Gabriel looked okay. But just it didn't do, I didn't get the same warm and fuzzies for him that I did watching Shador out there.
Yeah, and hey, I was going to ask a couple questions. What do you think about, I know he's a good player, he's an asset there, but the Browns winning like this, and I heard, in Cleveland what he did, he got caught speeding. Do you think it's a bad morale for the Browns because he's done this twice, and does he want to play with the Browns or continue to, this is where I'm confused. Do you think he wants to play for the Browns?
I think he wants to play for the Browns, but for whatever reason, I mean, Myles Garrett is one of those that it's like the further into this career of his that he's getting, especially with Cleveland, it's almost like frustration. Like, it's almost like, you know what, screw it. Like, I think he's frustrated with the state of the team, but he also had a chance to leave. He could have really forced the Browns to trade him, and he didn't. He agreed. He could have got that money out anywhere. He chose to stay here and get paid. And it's like, at this point, you went from, I was Team Garrett in regards to, if he wants out of Cleveland, I support it. I'm fine with that. He's given Cleveland everything, and they have not given him much. So if he wants out, I will support him. But you agreed to come back and take the money. And if you're going to be a Brown and you're going to take the money, you need to be a good leader. And he has not been since that. So we'll see what ends up happening.
Well, you think about him, the guy that's waiting it out. Do you think he'll be a Bengal? But they just keep waiting and waiting for him, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's just every contract negotiation with the Brown family just seems to turn into chaos, and they're not the only organization that happens. Okay, that they're not the only organization that makes things messy, but it just seems, I don't know the last time the Bengals did something that it wasn't messy. Yeah, but to their credit, more times than not, it gets done. Now, it didn't get done with Jesse Bates. All right, I did not think it was going to get done with T. Higgins. It got done. It got done with Shamar Stewart. We'll see what ultimately happens here. Yeah.
Hey, another thing too about it. Do you like the guys on TV, Chris Rose and Thomas? Do you like them pretty good?
Yeah, you asked me that last time.
Oh yeah, they're pretty good. Yeah, they're pretty good. But I just wondered, did the Reds win last night? I don't have, I didn't stay up. Did they win or lose?
Oh, they did. Word on the street is just how horrible offensively this team is. But man, they put up some runs last night, Dickie. They put up 6 whole runs. They put up 6 runs on the board. They're pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, and another thing, I'm just worried Guardians went in a bad hole. But I want them to come out of this, and I want Cincinnati to maybe get a wild card. But okay, they're 2. I think it's 8-game trip. If they win 5, they'd be good for that wild card. What do you think?
It would be cool to see both teams from Ohio make the playoffs, no doubt. But hey, Dickie, last thing before I let you go, if the Reds make the playoffs, do you think that they score, more than 2 runs in the first playoff game? Do you think that they could score some runs?
Yeah, I would think.
I'd say so too. Can you believe there was a guy that called in yesterday, Dickie, that said that the Reds, that they were horrible offensively? He just kept making fun of the Reds. I couldn't believe it.
I know. I did never tell you. I have a good friend. He stops and sees me. He heard me a lot, and he stopped for Christmas and stuff. He's tall, the nicest guy. His name is Dave from Dayton. He's a great guy. We get along good. He comes and thank you, Dick, for being my friend, and it's nice. There's a Dave from Dayton. How about that?
I got Dick from Dayton and Dave from Dayton. How about that? But hey, Dick, we're out of time. Thank you for being a good friend. We appreciate you.
Okay. Have a good week.
You too. Take care. All right. 937-518-1410. Let's keep it going. We got our guy, Shaw. Shaw, how are you, buddy?
How you doing?
I'm good. Did you think I was talking to you the last time?
I knew you were, but you weren't at the same time.
Man. What you got? How are you?
I'm good. I'm taking a deep breath after 5 minutes ago, but I'm trying to act like that didn't happen. But I'm trying to turn a new leaf here and be a different person and give you benefit of the doubt because you have a lot of things going on, a lot of things going through your mind at the time. So I'm going to try to break this down as easy as I can. But first, I do want to get to something about yesterday.
Okay.
I'm going to raise my hand, and I'll admit that.
Raise your hand or your voice. I can never tell.
I'll raise my hand and admit that I was wrong. I was wrong.
That's boring. Come on, Sean. That's boring.
No, it's no, because your point and some others that I listened to about this team, and well, let's just be honest here. It was ultimately my wife, because after we got off the phone, she looked at me and told me, "Well, you kind of are being a hypocrite." I said, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Well, you've paid attention to the Reds more this season than you have in the last 5 years combined. So obviously you're more interested for a reason." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, you taking Justin's side?" And I'm like,
she's a smart woman.
Well,
smart woman.
She's like, "Well, she goes, you know how I am. I call it the truth. And well, I think he's being more truthful than you are."
Damn
Like,
right.
I just think you're trying to be hateful to be hateful. I'm like, "No, oh, well." So
Hell yeah.
I sat down, thought about it, read some things, listened to some things. And yeah, I 6 months ago, I would have never thought they were here. 3 months ago, would have never thought they were here. Crap, 2 weeks ago, probably wouldn't have thought they were here. But they are 7 games over 500. They're a game out of the wild card. And that means we need to adjust some thinking. And I will admit that I'm probably one of those people. So I wanted to give you that before I went into this whole Bengals thing.
All right.
Oh, so deep breath. Yeah. So Myles Garrett is 29, and he signed the contract in March.
Uh-huh.
I know that doesn't seem like a lot to me and you and anybody else. That doesn't mean anything. I'm not a Bengals fan. Secondly, I don't agree with what the Bengals are doing. Because the whole thing doesn't make sense to me. If you want my honest opinion, he should have been signed in May when you were first talking about this on another show with 2 other guys. So
there's no bad blood between me and those guys. It was off the bench, Chatterbox Sports. It's okay. You can bring them up.
I didn't.
Shout out to Jacob and Elliot, baby. Casey, what's up? What's going on?
Right. I didn't know if we were not doing free promotion or not. I didn't say that's why.
Chatterbox Sports. So yeah,
love them. Yes. So do I. But yes, it was on OTV. And this conversation was being had all the way back in April and May, unbelievably. But anyhow, I firmly do believe, because Trey is already 30 years old, meaning anything of the contract extension moving forward, he's 30 and above, which is the whole crust of the entire argument for the Bengals right now. I agree. You agree that it's dumb. It doesn't make sense to us. But I firmly believe, because it's the same thing they did with Bates. It's the same thing they did with the offensive lineman. Whitworth, it's the same thing. For whatever reason, this is their MO. This is what they do. And they're going to stick to it because they think they're correct. I kind of agree with the last caller a little bit, not Dickie, but the one before, about talking about we don't fully understand. He doesn't fully understand that it might be a Stewart thing where out of nowhere, all of a sudden, Stewart either realized he was wrong or the agent realized it was wrong, whatever, and then it got signed. Here's why I say that. Monday night, Trey's talking to Lutridge, and he said that the contract is done. The only thing that's not done is the guaranteed money. You and I hear that. We know that's probably a very huge point in this. But I'm intrigued to the point of him going on national television and saying, "Well, we've agreed to terms, we've agreed to everything, it's just not the contract extension." I don't know. That's very interesting to me. And it also kind of led me down the path where I'm at today of, well, they're just not wanting to give him this guaranteed money because he's already 30 years old. And you look at all the other the defensive linemen that have signed, Crosby, Garrett, and all of them Watt, Watt's the only one, and Pittsburgh signed him at the age of 30. And all these other ones are 29 and younger.
It's 1 year.
So,
We're splitting hairs here.
You and I agree with that. They don't.
I know.
That was my last point on this, is when you kind of flipped out 7 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, whatever it was, you're acting like I'm the one that's condoning this. No, I'm just telling you what I think the front office is doing for the Bengals. It's not me, because I again would have signed him back in May. Like, okay, all right, well, we waited too long, and we should have either cut you, we should have either traded you earlier, or, well, now we got to eat it. So we're going to go ahead and eat this thing. Yes, it's 1 year. Yes, it's 6 months. Yes, it's 4 months, because Garrett turns 30 in 4 months now. So me and you agree. It sounds like half the fan base agrees, but for whatever reason, they're stuck on this whole thing of players can't play after they're 30 years old. I don't know. I don't have a reason for it. I don't. It doesn't make sense to me. Because it sure looks like Bates is doing fine in Atlanta. Whitworth went on and played, 5 more years and won a Super Bowl? There's plenty of guys that are playing when they're 30 years old, that are 30 years old and older, that deserve their money. And I don't know. I don't have any other answer for it. I don't.
They moved on from Mixon, who's 29. And I'm not saying Joe Mixon looked very, very good for the Texans last year while the Bengals continued to struggle running the football. But, we're both basically, look, I was acknowledging the reasons why the Bengals didn't want to do it. And I was saying all these other teams are giving extensions to guys in their 30s. And my point is that Trey Hendricks, or that Myles Garrett, although 29 now, is in the NFL season coming up, will be 30 years old. Teams are still paying guys at 30 guaranteed money moving forward. So I just think it's a strange move. If I would be 1 billion% on the side of the Bengals, if he was 32, 33, and they weren't wanting to give money to a 35, 36, 37-year-old, that's fine. This is just coming across silly. But then I'm also a slight hypocrite, because I will also be ticked off at the Bengals if they do cave, because if you were like, I will respect it if they just decide not to cave, because that means they stuck to their guns. If they cave, they could have caved sooner and just allowed him to be out there with the new defensive coordinator, with the new batch of defensive teammates, and to set the tone. To Joe Burrow's credit, and to the starters on offense's credit, they started multiple games. They played meaningful snaps. Like, it wasn't just one boring series and then they were done. They went out there to set the tone, and good for them. I don't feel like the defense set the tone. I don't feel like, I don't think Trey Hendrickson or the front office is setting the tone, but whoever caves is going to look really silly at the end of the day.
I completely agree with that. And you and I talked about this probably about a month ago now, that if the Bengals go ahead and cave now, they may as well not even try to stronghold another contract the rest of the time that you're on the radio, or you and I are talking on the radio at all, because not that we carry any weight with them, but there's no way they would be able to say anything and hold any weight. They already look silly as it is now, but you go ahead and cave now after you've done free agency and the draft, where you could have traded him and got anything back. You just look dumb, and dumber than you normally look. But anyhow, I hear the music. Go Blue. Peace.
He got the Go Blue in. Damn it. I don't really know what that argument was, but we were arguing but saying the same thing. I don't really know what happened, but no one yelled. So there's that. All right, so the Cincinnati Reds, too little, too late. The Reds have won 3 straight, but did they already screw up? We'll discuss when we come back. It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers.
To the Justin Kinner Show, right here on ESPN Dayton, 1410 Wing AM.
Well. How about those Cincinnati Reds last night? A 6-4 win so far in games 1 and 2. They've outscored the Angels 10-5, and they look to go for that sweep coming up here later on tonight. Another late one right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Look, the Reds are in the midst of a 2-game West Coast road trip, which started Monday night. 4-1 win over the Angels in game 1, a 6-4 game 2 win last night. And then game 3 coming up later on tonight, another 9:38. I had like a migraine like you wouldn't believe yesterday. So I went to bed at like 8. It was awesome. I don't know how many of you, I don't know what like the average time is that you guys go to bed, but like I have attacked today. I've dominated today. I've got so much done today because this is the most well-rested I have been in a long, long time. I feel like $1,000,000. But I was asleep an hour and a half before last night's first pitch. And I'm thinking about trying it again tonight. I don't know, but it was refreshing opening up the phone this morning and seeing that the Reds came away with a game 2 6-4 win. They go for the sweep tonight against the Angels. And look, the Reds now are a season high 7 games above 500. I talked about it yesterday. Look, I feel good about the direction of the Reds at this point in regards to them doing what they need to do to take care of business on the field. All right. The fact that, their pitching to me puts them in position to be able to go up against any team in baseball. There's not a team in the National League that I think that their pitching can't put them in position to win against. It doesn't mean that I'm confident that I'm not guaranteeing that the Reds are going to go to Los Angeles, in which they are, by the way, next week. But in the playoffs, I'm not, 1,000,000,000% confident that they're going to go to Los Angeles and sweep the Dodgers or win a series against the Dodgers. But I also am very confident, mainly because for one, they're the only team in baseball that has yet to be swept this year. I think that they are built to be able to compete and win against anybody. Their deficiencies get in their way, yes. Their inconsistencies offensively, but they are a middle-of-the-pack offensive team. But we talk about them as if they're the Colorado Rockies, who have been outscored by 333 runs. They have a minus 333 run differential on the year. That's the way Shaw yesterday, and some people were talking about the Reds, and it was kind of annoying. Because you're making me defend a very average offensive team. But they are better than what people are trying to make them out to be offensively. But I know the inconsistencies of their offense are the problem, and I understand that. But the other thing, and they've been a very opportunistic team all season, but I think that one of the biggest opportunities that presented itself in recent weeks, especially coming out of the All-Star break, 25, 30 games since the All-Star break, the Mets have been free-falling this entire time. The Mets have been absolutely plummeting this entire time, just begging the Cincinnati Reds to take that final wild card spot. The Reds have gotten to within a half game of a wild card spot. That's the closest that they have been in 3 months. And then they've dropped to 3.5. Then they get to 2.5. Right now they are a game out. They've won 3 straight. They've won 7 of their last 10. But guess what? The Mets, they seem to be coming back to life a bit. They seem to have bounced back a bit. The Padres seem to have bounced back a bit. The Cubs. But right now, the Cubs have won back-to-back games. The Padres just got a win. They're 6-4 in their last 10. The Mets have won 3 straight, and the Reds have won 3 straight. So when I said earlier, too little, too late, did the Reds miss their window? Are the Mets about to take off? Because, look, it's a long season. The Dodgers lost 7 straight at one point. The Dodgers have been swept multiple times this season. The Dodgers are the favorite to win the World Series. So it's like I sit back and I look at all of this, and I just hope that the Reds' window of capitalizing on the Mets' free fall, I hope they didn't miss that opportunity. Because the Mets seem like they're getting hot again. It's a long season. You're going to have a lot of ups and downs. The Dodgers, like I said, at one point, they lost 7 straight. They've been swept multiple times. But they're still the favorites, one of the favorites to win the World Series. You're going to have low runs during the season. And the Mets might have just had theirs, and the Mets might bounce back. And if that's the case, that's going to up the pressure on the Reds to be even more perfect moving forward. The good thing is the Mets and the Padres, the Reds have a series with both of them coming up over the next couple of weeks, in September. September is a ginormous month for the Cincinnati Reds, as I talked about. So they have 3 games at the Dodgers next week, starting on Monday. All right. They're going to welcome in the New York Mets on Friday, September 5th for a huge weekend series. I mean, there's a 6-game stretch where the Reds are going to play the two teams directly on top of them in the NL wildcard standings. They have 3 games against the Mets, a huge weekend series with them at GABP. We have tickets for that series, and we are going to be sending as many of you as we possibly can to help fill up Great American Ballpark, because that weekend, the playoffs could come down to that. And then the 3 games coming out of that series that weekend, they're going to go to San Diego for 3. They've already beat the Padres. They've taken 2 or 3 from the Padres already. But the Padres are the number 2 wildcard team as we currently sit here right now. They're 70-56. And they have a 3-game lead on the Cincinnati Reds as we currently sit here right now. And they are a game back of the New York Mets, who they'll play coming up just around the corner as well. But between that, I mean, they got the Dodgers coming up. All right, they do have the Cardinals and the Diamondbacks. Like, that's why, look, blood in the water, go for the kill tonight. Get that sweep over the Angels. Take that momentum, keep it on the road, go take care of business against the Diamondbacks, establish yourself against the Dodgers after that, and then come home where they're going to have 9 straight games, 3 with the Cardinals, 3 with the Blue Jays, and then the Mets series before they head west again to take on the Padres. But did they miss their mark? I mean, are the Mets about to get hot again? And if you have to keep pace with that Mets roster when they're playing well, I like the Mets' chances more than the Reds as far as who's going to outlast the other. Just found out, by the way, Tyler Stevenson starts an IL stint. So that's kind of where we're at as far as that goes. But nonetheless, Nathan Simpson on YouTube. Nathan, hope you're doing well. He says, don't forget that the Reds still have 6 games left against the Cardinals late in the season. They're 4-6 against St. Louis this season so far. Cardinals could be a thorn in their side at the finish line. Yeah, but that's the thing. The Reds have let a lot of bad teams this year be a thorn in their side. And that could be the case for a lot of teams. Like, I'm looking at this Diamondback series. I could honestly see the Reds. And by the way, the Angels are not a good team. I could see the Reds sweeping the Angels and then going to drop 2 or 3 against Arizona in Arizona. Now, I'd like to think that's not the case. You do have Brady Singer and Andrew Abbott pitching in 2 or 3 of those games. I love the fact that Hunter Green will kick off that series on the road against the Dodgers. And then they come home against the Cardinals, as you mentioned, Nathan. And by the way, Nathan, I'm not dismissing your opinion on that. You were right. The Pirates have been a thorn in the Red side this year. The Cardinals, teams that they should beat. And they've let those teams kind of hang around, and that's what's been kind of frustrating. A bad Braves team, they dropped 2 or 3 against Atlanta. Not okay. You split with the Pirates, but then you go and take 2 or 3 from Philly. You could have swept the Brewers, but very easily should have won that series. You win this Angels series. I feel pretty good about the fact that they've dominated this Angels series, because it's usually they play inspired baseball against teams like the Brewers, and then they crap the bed against bad teams, and they've looked like the better team in games 1 and 2, and they go for the season sweep coming up here later on tonight. All right. We'll step away for a few moments. We'll pick up with this when we come back. We get into some Ohio State stuff coming up around the corner. College football, NFL, football season's officially here. We'll be right back.